Now, in the last lesson, we went to the extreme with text effects and really kind of started from scratch and built a text effect from the ground up. But you don't always have to go to that extreme to make an impact on your images. You can apply very, very simple text effects and be effective depending on your placement. So here I have an image of a surfer, and all I'm going to do is, let's just say I wanted to do this and it was for a Hawaii ad or something like that, or just a poster. I'm going to go over here and grab my text tool. I'm just going to click in here and set some text. I'm going to type the word surf. And you'll notice that it's got a considerable amount of spacing in there, and it just doesn't look all that great. Well, I'm going to go over here into the layer panel and double-click on the text layer, and it's going to highlight all that text, and you'll bring up the options in here in the options bar. And I'm going to open up my text options by clicking right on this icon right here. You'll see it opens up the character palette. And I don't need the paragraph palette, so I'm going to go ahead and close that one up. So we got the character palette open, and here's it gives me all the information that's up in here, just a little bit more. You'll notice I've got the text set to Arial Black, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. What I want to adjust right here is the tracking, the setting right here. And I'm not going to input a number. I'm just going to use the scrubby slider and watch the text close in on each other when I move this into a negative number. And notice how the text looks different now. The impact of the text is considerably different. So let's go ahead and unhighlight that. I'm going to go ahead and fill it with white, so I'm going to press Command-Delete. And you'll notice the text looks a little bit different. It has kind of a style to it. It almost has a design element to it. And all we did was simply change the spacing between the letters. We didn't apply any layer styles. We didn't apply anything like that. We simply changed the spacing. And that has a big difference on text whenever you apply it that way. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit more. I'm actually going to set that at 140. Looks good. So we've set that. Now I'm going to position it up here in the upper corner, and I'm going to press Command or Control T to bring up the free transform. I'm just going to scale this out, and I'm going to do it disproportionately. I'm going to release my Shift key and just kind of drag this out where it kind of goes into where the surfer is, and let's just drag that top so it touches right on the top and right edges there. Now I'm going to press Enter. Now notice the edges are still sharp. It didn't resample my text. It's still the same text. It's just much bigger. It just increased the size. You can see the number is much larger here. So now all I'm going to do with this is just simply change the blend mode from normal to overlay. And it gives me kind of a background text effect. Well, it's creeping into the actual image of the surfer here, so let's apply a layer mask. Grab our brush tool. Let's get a relatively small brush there, painting with black, and let's just go in here and paint that area out, making sure we're painting with black, of course. And let's paint out that area of the hand where that text is creeping in there. So it'll look like the text is kind of behind the surfer. Again, increasing the impact and making the image a little bit more interesting. And we haven't applied any really elaborate text effects. We simply modified the spacing and then put it in position and changed the blend mode. I'm going to increase that. I want to decrease that spacing between the U and the R. So I'm just going to click my cursor in between there. And I'm going to use this setting right here. This modifies the spacing between characters. So let's just nudge that in a little bit. And there you can see it closes it in. And now we've got pretty impressive looking text. Now, I'm just going to reuse the same element by going in and dragging that and making a duplicate. Or you can simply press Command-J. And let's go ahead and drag that down here. And let's go ahead and remove that layer mask. I'm going to drag it to the trash. And it's going to ask me if I want to delete it. And say yes. And let's change the blend mode back to normal. And let's retype some new lettering here. Let's do, hey, it's surfing. Let's do Maui. So we got that those words there. I'm going to press Command or Control T and then scale this down and position this right about here. Maybe make it a little smaller. It's almost like it's an ad for Maui, Surf Maui. And let's just kind of separate that text from that background text by adding a simple drop shadow real quick here. And there we have it. So you can see in just a few steps and just modifying the text itself, not changing, not applying any layer styles, well, except for a drop shadow, of course, but not going into a lot of elaborate text effects, we've made an impact on this image just by applying those few different layers. Let's try it on a different image. Let's do a similar thing, but a different way of applying the text. I'm going to grab that text tool, and I'm going to click in here again, and let's type the word rock. Because it's a guitar, we're going to rock out. So, let's scale this text in, and I'm going to change the font. I'm actually going to go ahead and fill it with white. And I'm going to double click that text layer, and let's change the font to something a little crazier. Let's do this black oak. That should be nice and crazy. Look at that. That's cool. So I'm going to take that. With that text selected, we're going to go up here in the options bar and click this so it goes vertical. So now it's changed the way the text looks, spelling it downward instead of across. So let's go ahead and scale this in. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and to scale it so it takes the whole width. And let's just kind of push that in a little bit so that K will be more visible. Now, here's the problem. The R and the K look okay, but that O and C, they're too small. They don't look right. Gotta adjust a few things here. So let's highlight that text and open up that character palette once more. And let's go ahead and modify the spacing a little bit. Let's close that in a little bit more. And then, in fact, increase the size. Because when we close that space in, we close the where we opened up the gap there. So let's kind of increase that size a little bit. And we want to make the O and the C a little bit bigger, right? I'm going to select, I'm just going to drag and highlight that O. And we're going to go in here, and right down here we've got this little setting right here, which allows us to make the letter wider. But be careful, it's a very responsive tool there. So we're just going to increase that, and you'll notice that the letter is getting wider. So we're resizing the letter individually. And again, this is still editable text. So let's go ahead and highlight the C and do the same thing. We'll widen that out a little bit. Pretty much until it touches the edge there, just like the other letters are doing. And that O might be a little bit too big, so let's bring that down. Oop, wrong setting. Bring that down just a hair. And I think that looks pretty good. But you see that? We've modified the text and made all these changes and made it look more compelling just using this character palette, just by modifying the text a little bit. So as usual, let's change the blend mode. We'll do that to overlay. And we can even nudge that over a little bit, just so those edges are really right on the edge. And we've applied a simple, impactful text effect on this image in a very, very short period of time with just one simple text there. And the best part, it's still editable. So if we wanted to just make this say roll, we could do that. And we've applied that, and it's the spacing and everything. It's all editable right there using that character palette. So just another way of looking at text effects. They don't have to be really involved, elaborate illustrations. Again, it depends on your target, what you're developing the text effect for. You may need to do that. It may need to be involved and be really impactful and really fun like that. Sometimes subtlety is the key. You can make a very understated, putting very understated effects can make a very impactful statement there. I don't know if that made sense, but I think you get the point that you don't have to go through a lot of elaborate stuff. Really elegant designs have really, really simple but very well-placed text. Makes all the difference in the world. So, another thing to think about with text effects, let's move on to the next lesson.